All right, today we are diving into one of the coolest, most mind-bending frontiers in all of neuroscience, building virtual brains. We're going to see how scientists are using these incredible computational models to decode the deepest mysteries of our own minds. Everything from how we see the world to how we remember who we are. Let's get into it.
So, this is it. This is the big one. The question that keeps neuroscientists up at night. Think about it. You've got this 3-pound universe of neurons tucked inside your skull. Billions of them. And individually, they're pretty simple cells. But somehow, together, their coordinated firing creates, well, everything. All of it. It's the ultimate black box. And for the longest time, we could really only guess what was happening inside.
And this question really gets to the heart of the challenge. The brain isn't some static computer chip. It's alive. It's constantly changing, evolving, adapting. So the real puzzle was, could we even come up with a language, a mathematical language, powerful enough to describe something so incredibly fluid and complex? For a while there, the answer was not so clear.
But today, oh yeah, the answer is a huge, resounding yes. And the main tool we use to get there is the computational model. You can think of these models as the critical bridge that connects the physical stuff, the wetware of neurons and synapses, to the world we actually experience, our thoughts, our perceptions, our memories.
A great way to think about this is like a flight simulator for the brain. I mean, you can't just pop open a living brain and start rewiring things to test a new theory about how memory works, right? But in a digital laboratory like this, you absolutely can. You can build a virtual version, run thousands of experiments, tweak every little variable, and see what happens. All things that would be completely impossible to do with a real living brain. So let's just be super clear on what we're talking about. At its core, a computational model is really just a set of mathematical rules that are designed to act like a piece of the brain. It could be a tiny circuit of just a few neurons or a whole brain region. The end goal is always the same. Create a simulation that can actually predict how the real biological system is going to behave under different conditions. And look, this isn't just guesswork. It's a super rigorous scientific cycle. It all starts with observing the real brain in action. From there, scientists cook up a mathematical hypothesis, basically a set of equations they think explains what they're seeing. Then they build the model, run simulations, and here's the most important part. They compare the model's results to new, real-world data. If it doesn't line up, it's not a failure. They just go back, refine the model, and run it again, getting closer and closer to how the brain actually works with every single loop. Okay, so let's make this real. Let's look at a case study of how this process helps us understand one of the most amazing things our brain does: vision. How do we take simple patterns of light and turn them into the rich three-dimensional world we all see? Check this out. On the left, you've got the raw data that your retina actually picks up. It's just a bunch of weird, disconnected shapes. But that is not what you see, is it? No way. Your brain instantly perceives what's on the right: a crisp white triangle sitting on top of another triangle, and 3 black circles. This is called an illusory contour, and it's perfect proof that your brain is actively constructing your reality, not just passively recording it. So how can a model possibly explain this incredible leap of logic? Well, models of the visual cortex can now simulate this whole process with amazing accuracy. They show how networks of neurons can detect tiny cues that suggest one object is blocking another. Then the model uses something called Bayesian logic, which is really just a fancy way of saying it makes the best guess based on all the evidence it has. It calculates the probabilities and concludes that the single most likely explanation for those weird shapes is a white triangle that isn't even there. It's a perfect example of the brain acting like a prediction engine. Now, let's take that same idea and apply it to another one of the brain's heavy hitters: memory. How do we store and retrieve the experiences that literally make us who we are? So when we build computational models of memory, especially for a place like the hippocampus, they're usually made from a few key ingredients. First, they treat the brain as an associative memory, meaning it's great at linking things together, like a place and an event. Second, they rely on synaptic plasticity, the idea that connections between neurons get stronger or weaker based on how they fire together. And finally, and this is so important,
They use hierarchical networks, where simple little memories can be stacked up to create much more complex ones.
And this is where that hierarchical structure just becomes so powerful. This quote here might sound a bit dunce, but what it's saying is actually incredible. A modeling study found that even if you only have very simple short-term memory mechanisms at the neuron level, if you stack them up in a hierarchy, the whole network can suddenly remember really long, really complex sequences of events. A complex ability emerges from organizing simple parts. That's a huge insight, made possible entirely by building the model. Okay, so this brings us to the big picture. Why is this whole approach so revolutionary? What's the ultimate point of building these virtual brains in the first place? Because here's the thing. The true power of a really good model isn't just that it can copy something we already know. The real game changer is that it can make new, specific, and totally testable predictions about how the brain should act in a situation we've never even looked at before. These predictions are what guide the next wave of real-world experiments. It creates this amazing feedback loop between the digital model and the biological brain. So, as we wrap up, what are the big takeaways here? First, these computational models are the essential tool that bridges that huge gap between tiny neurons and grand experiences like cognition. They take abstract ideas like perception and turn them into concrete, testable mechanisms. And because of that, they help us design smarter experiments, pushing neuroscience forward. They really are a foundational tool for how we study the brain today. And that leaves us with one final, pretty deep question to think about. If, one day, we actually succeed, if we build a complete, predictive model of the human brain that perfectly mimics everything it does that mean we've finally, truly understood the mind itself? It's a question that sits right on the border of science and philosophy, and it's a question that these virtual brains are helping us get closer to answering every single day. Thanks for joining us.